all the social media to kick in. So Jez, I've got an interesting one for you. I've got a challenge for you. Everyone, we're just waiting for the social media to kick in. We're going to say hello quickly to everyone piling in on Zoom and on the podcast. Chaps, last night I had a very mercurial evening. Adam, I know you had a really interesting evening at your awards evening that you attended. I was at a theatrical wine tasting, and for some reason I got chosen on the panel of three. And next to me I had a lovely lady called Alice, who's a method actor from London. And next to Alice was a very interesting chap called Howard, who's an ex-EastEnders actor. And so we've got these two aficionados, know everything about wine. Me, wine. Well, the only question I ever ask about wine is, can I have a bigger glass? And we had to go through what wine we would pair with Christmas dinner in front of an audience of 90. So they were doing what actors do and pontificating about it, and I just got into jokes about farmers and mother-in-laws, which worked very, very well. Anyway, so I also said what I was doing, and that I was going to be having this broadcast with yourself. And so I asked these 90 people, right, I'm going to do this broadcast tomorrow with Adam and Mark, two very leading, influential people from the agricultural sector. You've got nothing to do with agriculture. What's the question you want me to ask of Adam and Mark? And the question that they wanted me to ask was, what's the biggest farm animal that you've ever seen? So, whilst you're thinking about that, my biggest farm animal was I think it was 1989. I was milking in Sevenoaks. Mark will relate to this. It was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I got kicked in the head by number 68 Frisian cow, and that cow looked massive as I laid on the floor of the daily dairy parlour. So that was my biggest animal. Mark, what was the biggest farming animal you've ever seen?
I think it is another dairy cow coming from the back of the industry, and it was on a big unit down in Sussex that used to source a number of their heifers and genetics from Holland. And this was a Dutch heifer that was about 6'7". It was huge at the withers. It was monstrous, and she didn't fit the system at all.
Wow.
But she kept getting in calf, even though the owners were like, we probably need to remove her from the system.
Oh no! Did she have a pedigree name?
Yeah, she did, but I can't remember. I think it was Zara or something like that. It was quite a bizarre name.
Zara the monster. Adam's thinking. Yeah. Adam, can you better that?
Well, my biggest farm animal is because of the size of the animal versus my small children at the time. So it's like a perspective thing, really. But we went to see a friend of ours on a farm when we've got 3 boys now, but the 2 of them were, I don't know, 4 and 2 or something like that. And they sort of peered over a half barn door into a really traditional shed. And this pig went like that on the barn door, it filled the space, but obviously the sort of perspective of the children and the pig, it was quite possibly the biggest pig I've ever seen, and it had very big gnarly teeth.
Yeah.
It wasn't. You wouldn't say an intensive pig production farm. It was the pig that lived in the shed.
Fantastic. Well, Mark and I often talk about this, that 6 out of 10 kids don't know where fresh produce or agricultural produce comes from. There's something very mercurial, isn't there, when you've got urban kids that meet farm animals for the first time, and that sort of correlation, that relation between them. We must do more of this. Mark, we must get Adam on again with a bunch of animals and some kids, and it would make anyway. Right, come on. Social media's all kicked in. We are away. Hello, everyone. My name is Max McGillivray from Beanstalk Global. Fantastic to be here today with my esteemed colleague, Mark from the AHDB. Mark, do you want to just take us away and introduce what our talking leaders are about, and give a little bit of praise about Adam before I give the whole raison d'etre about Adam?
Yeah, no, thank you, Max, and welcome, Adam. So, Talking Leaders is an AHDB series that we try and bring people from inside and outside of UK agriculture and try and learn a bit about what they do and what they get up to, and how their sectors and their industries and their experiences can help and influence agriculture, and how we lead and manage our businesses in the moving world. And yeah, we're really pleased today to have Adam Bedford from Fera Science, the collaborations director, to delve into his insights through his esteemed pedigree within the industry.
To Adam, before we let you loose, I think where this broadcast and podcast works very well on the sort of mercurial basis is that Mark and his colleague Isaac and the other great colleagues within the AHDB, they find really interesting people out of sector that we all learn from, but we also mustn't forget that there's a really interesting people within the sector as well that we can learn from. And so, Adam, what we're really keen to learn from you is some of your understanding of people and the sector, and also the without being over dramatic, how joyous the sector is. So we can pop up the tires of everyone in it, and also bring hopefully more people into the sector. So let's do the formal introduction. Today we're joined by Adam Bedford, as Mark said, collaborative projects director at Fera Science, and Adam is one of the most influential, forward-thinking leaders in UK ag. Adam oversees Enigma, the flagship R&D model for the business that brings science and industry together to drive innovation, knowledge transfer, and real-world impact across the agri-food sector. Before joining the business, Adam spent 7 years as NFU Northeast Regional Director. That's a big role, representing over 6,000 farmers and growers and shaping regional and national agricultural strategy. Prior to that, he led the British Agricultural Bureau in Brussels, representing, deep breath, 70,000 UK farmers in negotiations and policy engagement with the European Commission, Parliament and Council. With deep experience spanning UK farming, EU policy, supply chain, sustainability and collaborative innovation, Adam brings a unique informed perspective, and we're delighted to have him with us today. And also, he went to Newcastle University. Other universities that are available, but a brilliant university. Adam, is that a good praise of yourself, please?
No, it sounds like you're setting me up for a fallout. This is going to be all right with people listening. I don't know where you got the. Is that Google? You got the information from Google?
No, your wife paid me.
Got it. Sorted. Yeah, no, that's very kind. Let's get into the discussion. I'm just part of a big machine.
No. Adam, but let me just throw it back at you. We always say on this broadcast that everyone's career is sort of like a book, and if it's okay to say, because we can all learn from yourself. You say you're a third, halfway through your book. Where do you want to go? You're doing lots of good now. What further good do you want to do within the industry?
Oh, straight to the deep one. Thanks for that. No pre-warning. Where do I want to go? I'm going to dance around the answer because I didn't know you were going to ask that question. I think probably what I would say is the next. I've been in agriculture 20 years. The next 20 years, we're going to see change like we've never known, aren't we? So it feels a bit. Yep. I'm sure we'll get into this, but it's not easy in agriculture and the environment and the countryside and the country. It's not easy just now. But the next 20 years will be the time that we have got to solve all of these challenges that we're all talking about. Whether that's for a farmer running a farm business, whether that's the likes of organizations like ours doing research to help farmers in the food industry, or whatever area you're in and the things that you're facing into, they will be resolved within our working life now. I'm 41, so I've got 20 to 30 years left of working life, and we will have to solve them. It's on our watch because we can't not solve these things because we're talking about the fundamentals of life. So I'm not giving you a straight answer, but I'm more excited than at any time to be working in farming food in the countryside.
Yeah,
basically.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is: are you happy? Are you happy with your involvement within agriculture? Because your background, you could be doing anything. You could be doing sports management. You could be doing politics, but you've chosen the sector of ag. Are you happy with that choice?
Yeah, I mean, I sometimes put some of this stuff on social media, so I'm going to repeat myself if anybody might have read this before. But my perspective on this is, to sort of follow on from the answer to your previous question, is the biggest challenges facing us will be addressed by the decisions that farmers and growers and landowners choose to make with land. So the big environmental issues, the big production issues, the big social issues that we face will be addressed by that. So therefore, I'm happy and delighted and excited to be in this sector. And when I say this sector, depending on who I'm talking to or what projects I'm working on, this sector can be agriculture, it can be the wider natural environment, or it can be research. Yeah. But I think it's the most fascinating time, and I'm excited to work here and very happy.
Yeah. And I think agriculture gets a bad press, and sometimes we generate that ourselves. But it's like Mark, it's a bit like our fantastic South African colleague Isaac. Was it Isaac who said that South African saying that in a moment of crisis, make a plan, make a plan and be positive. And Adam, we can obviously see that you're a very positive individual, and sort of semi-apologizing for the directness of the questions. But that's what I wanted to get, was that you're understanding that you enjoy this sector, so that people within the sector know, well, bloody hell, if Adam's enjoying it and he can see the positive of it, let's follow him. Or other people dialing in from the UK or internationally think, actually, yeah, ag could be a really interesting sector to be involved with.
I suppose the only thing that I would say is, especially if you know, farmers are listening, I'm not a farmer, so you know,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
say these things, but I don't have the pressure of being a farmer. You know, soft hands, no heavy lifting involved in my job. You know, so I feel like I have to say that, but I feel like I've got a deep affinity with the sector,
Yeah.
and I want it to do well. So I
Yeah.
think it's okay to be excited whilst also understanding the pressures that people who aren't me, who are doing the farming, are under.
Yeah, but then again, we can't be modest about what you've achieved today. Being a regional director for the NFU, don't swear, Max, is a really important role, let alone the Agricultural Bureau in Brussels representing 70,000 farmers. Mark, we need more Adams. We need to put Adams through the photocopy a couple of times, don't we?
I think we do, yeah, and that positivity, that solution focused, and taking the bull by the horns and being part of solving these challenges and making strides is definitely the type of person that we need in the industry. And the glass being half full and having that right mindset is so important. So today's broadcast, the title is Agri Leadership in Turbulent Times: The Power of Working Together. We want to delve into the facts of how we can better work together. And if you want to go on your own, you go. If you want to go fast, you go on your own. If you want to go far, you go together. That whole phrase. So within your raft of experience that we've just talked about, and that ranges, what does agri leadership mean to you, and particularly in this really fast-paced world that we now live in?
I think it's about having a real understanding of your perception of where we might be going. You know, so there's a huge amount, understandably, from business, farming, and you know, wider economy, of the need for clarity for things. But I actually think there's quite a lot of clarity in agriculture and the environment and what we need to do. We might not like that clarity. That might be difficult, but I think it's there. I think it's clear the direction of travel. And then it'll be about, if you're running your own business or you want to get into this, or you're doing the type of jobs like I do, having a real, you know, being able to articulate and having a narrative about what is needed and the things that you're doing in order to do something about, you know, the challenges that we face and where we might be going. And then from that, really, I'm sort of loath to say this because it's slightly cringy, because I'm, you know, about to quote a US president, which is a bit highfalutin. But there was a US president who said, which really resonated with me, was learn how to get things done. Learn how to get things done. And that is something that I've tried to do. I'm not perfect on this, and I'm still trying to learn how to get things done. But I think it's an important part of leadership, whether that's somebody who's, you know, running their own business and having to prove that to the people that have an interest in that business, or whether that's leading a team of people. When you've got the narrative of what you're trying to achieve, you know the challenges that you're trying to overcome and the direction of travel that you're going in. You've got to show the people that you're either working with or who are working for you as a leader, to show them how to get things done and to support them to do that. And that would be my biggest thing that is needed, because we all know the problems and how hard things can be. But as somebody once said when I used to write for Farmers Weekly, you know, nobody ever started an article to get to the middle of it. They wanted to get to the end. So let's learn how to get things done. You know, we don't want to be doing that hard thing forever. We know what the hard things are. We know why it's going to be difficult, but we've got to learn how to get things done. We've got to go through it. So that would be, you know, sort of a bit of food for thought to start us off.
Well done. And Adam, just to interject. Did you learn leadership at Newcastle?
I wouldn't have said so. I think university is fabulous. I went to Askin Bryan before that, and then did a master's at Newcastle. So when I was at Askin Bryan, it was I did agriculture. It was called sustainable land use, and I think it's called agriculture again now. But it's called sustainable land use. And then I did a master's at Newcastle in rural development, because I was as interested in the other things that are happening in the countryside apart from just agriculture and how do they interact. So that was the master's. But I don't think I learned leadership at Newcastle. I think I understood the basics of, or tried to understand what was happening in the countryside. But I think I learned leadership really working for the NFU because, if you're in the back room of a pub talking to a group of farmers about difficult things, you're at the front of the room.
Oh my God,
and they might they perceive you as the leader at that moment because you're imparting some information of some description. So I learned about that, and one of the things that I would often say, and I still reflect on that in the job I'm doing now, is to say, well, actually, no, I'm not the expert here. I'm not the leader. I'm somebody who understands what's going on, but you people in the room are the leaders, actually. So I think it was that, working for a representative organization where there's that balance between leading people, but also representing their interests and not telling them what to do. That's where I hopefully learn some of the skills I've got now.
Thank you for that. We talk a lot about leadership, and I knew that you weren't going to say, oh yeah, we had a whole term on leadership, because that just doesn't happen in universities. I'm not expecting it to, because you need to learn on the job. As per your example, you had that exposure, you stepped out of your comfort zone and you learned and you did more of it, to the point of, just to reiterate, British Ag Bureau in Brussels, regional director for the Northeast. That more exposure, you learned more on leadership.
I tell you what I did do. You're prompting my memory here. This is perhaps for people listening who might be thinking, okay, what are the different things I can do? I think what was really important for me was realizing that there are certain points in your career as you go through life, if people are running their own business, where you had a university experience, which was a basis for things, and you probably also set friendships and connections that you've then used as you go into your career. But I'm 41 now, and it's probably 10 or 11 years ago, so coming up 30, just when I'd started working in Brussels, I did the Challenge of Rural Leadership course run by Dutch College and Worship a Company. Which remains very popular. But that was a real that was professionally and personally groundbreaking for me, and I still draw on that. That's 10 years ago.
So never stop learning. Mark, over to you.
No, definitely never stop learning, and definitely push yourself out of your comfort zone to achieve those things. But just going back to that point, that quote from said US president around learn how to get things done. It is tough in the industry, and when you're running a business potentially, and this is not being explicit across all of our farmers and producers, you tend to get a little bit inward in terms of you focus on the day-to-day and actually what's going on there and then. But actually, as a leader, if we look a little bit more outward and try and work together with people and draw on people's strengths from outside, then actually that can be part of the solution. What would your opinion be in terms of how we get farmers to not go for the instinct and be a bit more focused on the inward and actually to start reaching out to work with people?
I think it's probably about, and we might come on to this when we talk about some of the types of projects that I'm doing with industry, which would more be with companies rather than individual farmers, which is the root of your question. I think it's probably about all of us as individuals, whether you're a farmer or anything, is to understand that something that you're trying to get done, a challenge that you're facing, is unlikely to be unique to you, even though when you're in that ground, and it might be something that you're working on that's very, very difficult, and it could be a personal challenge or a professional challenge. There's always going to be somebody who's faced that before, but in order to try to be in touch with those people, and that could be a neighbouring farmer, it could be the types of networks that come from farmers' organisations or AHDB or the company that you sell your product to. There's lots of amazing things going on in agriculture. I suppose all of us as individuals, it's incumbent on us to be honest enough and comfortable enough to say, this is something that I'm struggling with. Has anybody else had this experience?
No.
And it's sort of guaranteed really that somebody's going to say, well, I didn't have exactly that thing, but let me tell you about when this happened. Or most of the time they're going to be able to say, I faced exactly the same thing. Why don't we have a coffee? Most people are nice, good people. They want to help each other.
Oh my God. Yeah. And I know a guy that does high-end training courses, and he says that he's found out after a number of years that the delegates that they have on their courses, 50% of what they learn is on the course. 50% of what they learn is at the bar at the course because of that, Adam. Oh God, you got a similar business to me. I've had this problem. Have you? Oh yeah, we had that 2 years ago. We did. Do you want to come over to see our site? And yeah, so we mustn't be shy. And also we all need to slightly pinch ourselves about agriculture and see what you think to this market, especially that with organisations like the AHDB and similar groups. There's such a big support network there in comparison to shoe manufacturing or ball bearing manufacturing, and we mustn't forget that. And Adam, we must lean on that, mustn't we, to get the best from it. Mark, would you agree?
Yeah, no, completely agree. Don't know a lot about the shoe industry or the ball bearing industry, but I completely agree with you in terms of the networks that are out there. And it's not, I think it's as simply as it's not to say that you need to pick the phone up and have that heart to heart with your neighbour saying it's putting yourself in the situation where you're surrounded by like-minded people that you can then start to interact those kind of conversations and those challenges, which will then come naturally, if that makes sense.
I think a couple of things just reflect on that though. That does mean as well that it's going to sort of sound a little bit strange because I'm not articulating myself very well, but it does mean you've got, as an individual, you do have to do some work on yourself as well. You have to be self-aware enough to know something that you might need to be better at. So that's a difficult thing because we never say to our boss or our colleagues, I'm really crap at this.
Yeah.
And social media or LinkedIn or whatever, it is not designed to be putting stuff out there where I'm really struggling with this thing.
Yeah,
it's all about us, polishing our halos, isn't it? Just a quick thing before we move on. One thing that it did make me think about is I'm going to say sort of middle-aged people like me and us, for younger people coming into agriculture or the wider sector, it's really incumbent on us to remember the type of people that helped us along our ways, and everybody will have their own individual stories about people who were older than them at the time that either gave them a start or gave them some advice or recognized something in them and gave them a job. And I think it's incumbent on all of us who are in positions where we can do something about that to make it clear to younger people that we are there to help as well. And for younger people to also understand that they need to reach out to people. And, I've said this to people all the time, if you'd have to be a terrible person if you got an email from somebody politely saying, could I have a short meeting with you? Yep. Or come to your office and meet you, or I'm going to this conference, or would I be able to talk to you? I mean, the three of us on this call and anybody listening would of course say yes.
Yeah.
Of course they would.
Yeah.
So young people have got to do that, don't they? They've got to go. The young people have the power to ask. They've got to ask because they're not going to get it given to them.
Yeah, let's just major on that for a minute. There's a big problem with the younger generation that they hide behind this, so they're not good at doing that, and so that they rely behind. We see this on a recruitment perspective that the younger generation are just sending in applications. The better people by far are those that ring. If you want to get something done, ring Adam, ring Mark, ring me. Hi, my name is. I'll send you a quick email, but I'm thinking about getting into this sector. I could see that could we organise 20 and everyone, Adam. I've never met anyone in the sector who wouldn't say, yeah, not now, but yeah, now I'd love to help you, and I'll put you in contact. And Mark, just going back a bit with our esteemed colleague Isaac, talking about groups. If Isaac was on here, he would be banging the drum about the Nuffield Farming Trust, and Adam, you had your equivalent with your worshipful members of. So there's enough organisations to go out there to really go for it. Mark.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there's a whole myriad in terms of those kind of training and those organisations. Look on the AHDB website. We can stick the link in. There's a whole raft that you can decide what's right for you. But I think you're right, Adam, in terms of what you're saying. I completely agree. I think going back to my point about surrounding yourself with people, it is about you as an individual making relationships with people that you are trusted, that you can say that you're not very good at something or you need a bit of help with that. Like for me, as an example, talking about me and Isaac as a working unit, we've worked together now at AHDB. For me, it was for 8 years prior to that, where we were both lecturers, and taught was 4 years before that. We've got a very good relationship. He knows, and I'm not very good at spelling. My spelling and grammar is atrocious. Isaac is very good. And that is a little silly example that if I'm writing a press release or I'm writing an article or I'm writing a paper, I'll be quite open to say, Isaac, can you just scan your eyes over that, please? And that's because I trust him and because I've got a relationship with him. And I think that's what, from what you said, that's how I understood what it's about. It's about, yeah, like you said, being aware of what your strengths and the areas you need to improve on are, but having that network of people around you that you can pick the phone up, you can go have a coffee with them, you can see them at the auction mart, whatever that be, to say, I'm struggling with blue tongue. How have you dealt with it? What are your strategies before talking to the vet or whatever?
I think as well on that, it's also important about developing a team around you and understanding that you can have a team around you. So, you know, in the, I'm going to say professional, I don't mean that farmers aren't professional. I mean, in the working world where people go into offices and stuff, you've got teams, and it's not always like that on a farm. However, farmers do have a team of people around them that they can call on. But I think at times when it's difficult or challenging, they don't necessarily see that they do have a team, but they do. And I think it's about constantly building that. And, you know, to your example, Mark, and I can think of the things that I don't do very well, and other people do miles better than me. It's about recognizing that you don't do some stuff, but guess what? There's somebody that you know very well who is happy to support you, who can do the thing that you struggle with so easily that they'll get it done in 5 minutes and take you 2 hours, and they'll be delighted to help you. And all you've got to know is that one day they're going to ring you for help with the thing that you're really good at and they struggle with. And that's just called scratching each other's back. And that's the joy, isn't it, of everybody working together in a fantastic industry.
Yeah. And, guys, just coming back, a memory from last week. Adam and I had the pleasure of attending. Adam was showing with his fantastic colleagues at the British Potato event 2025, and I took my son, who's farming mad and is hopefully going to stay within the industry, and he noticed. Adam, on your stand, how many younger people were engaging with all of your team? I don't think it was the freebies you were giving away. I think it was a genuine interest. And actually, at that particular show, British Potato event 2025, there was so what you think, Adam? There were so many younger individuals, and the fact that they were coming up to your stand to have direct communication. I don't know what they were necessarily engaging with, but I'm guessing they were treating it as a bit of a milk round, if anyone remembers that expression, just to find out about yourselves and the business.
No, they were, and I was actually be wrong to say surprised, really, because there's tons of young people in the industry. But I would agree with your assessment of the event in itself. I thought it was brilliant. You know, real good mix of ages, but focused on younger people. And from our side, you know, we're a science organisation at Fera, so there's a need to have deep a good memory bank, if you like, of what's gone before. So that means that you've got people who've worked in the organisation for a long time and their time served. It's important. But it's equally important, which is what we did when we went to the event, to also take more junior scientists with us who might be, if you like, at the bench in white coats, and some of the more principal scientists are not doing as much of that technical work as they used to do in their younger days. But to have that mix to also show, in much the same way that we talk about succession issues in agriculture, that there are the same succession challenges and the importance of focusing on how you move younger people through an industry in the ancillary industries that support agriculture. And it's back to your point before about, you know, the support that's available, and how actually agriculture is a unique industry, but we've got shared challenges, really. You know, I'm sure if we went to an industry conference for an industry that we don't know anything about, they will be talking about the pressure from government, the need for some direction of travel, and how it's difficult for the industry, and we need more younger people coming through, and it's not like it used to be.
No. Well, 2 weeks ago, I went to the ball bearing conference that was followed by the shoe conference, and they were saying exactly the same thing. So guys, we'll be very optimistic and positive. But we feel, it feels like, to you both think, that we're talking about individuals within the sector, businesses. Do you think businesses within our sector are just fairly monosyllabic and it's all about shareholder value, and they're not caring, or are they a foil to yourself, Adam, to yourself, Mark, that businesses have that psyche that they do care and they want to do good as well as the individuals within? Mark, what do you think?
Yeah, I do think they care, and I think as like going back to that quote, which I really like about learning to get things done. I think within business now and within wider industry, we've got to work better together because we can't do all this stuff on our own. We can't overcome all these challenges, and we need to play to each other's strengths. And I think yes, there's always going to be commercial, intellectual properties, and all those kind of challenges. But I think in certain situations, we've got to collaborate more. We've got to work together more to play to each other's strengths to actually both get to that goal in an equal measures.
Adam?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and that's borne out in the experience that I've had in the projects that we develop with the industry at Fera. It's exactly that. You know, you're always amongst businesses, like as individuals, you're going to have a range of opinions and mindsets, but I think I think there are more ways to collaborate than issues where people are in competition, to be quite honest. And I think more and more people are realizing that, and there's a space where people can collaborate together and not lose that competitive edge. And it's, you know, what we've demonstrated on some of the projects that we've done, which we might come on to, is that actually, if you create the conditions for people to be able to talk to each other, so a little bit like your point before, Max, you know, when is the business done in a meeting of farmers? It's done when everyone goes over the swap numbers, or this done at the bar, or, you know, the meeting finishes and then you've got another meeting afterwards. It's exactly that as well. When we bring industries together, people from the industry together in our projects, we're getting the things done in the project. But I know outside of that project structure and framework, there is a range of other conversations ongoing where they're collaborating with each other and doing things and making good things happen, which has got nothing to do with us. I just know that they're doing it.
Brilliant.
And that's fabulous. And that's fabulous.
Yeah, well done, because I have this fear in the middle of the night. If you look at ESG, carbon neutrality, if you look at what's happening in the States, that the likes of BlackRock Capital, Disney, and a couple of other names have just pulled away from all of that because they don't see it offers shareholder value. And I fear sometimes that this will also come marching down the line, that there'll be a big spooky accountant within some of our businesses who says, well, it's not making any money. It's not adding to the bottom right hand corner of the Excel spreadsheet. Get rid of it. We've got to make things and not do all this fluffy stuff. But actually, it's the fluffy stuff that contributes so heavily to that business's success and to staff retention and attractiveness to bring more people in. So we can't be short-sighted in the short term. Adam, would you agree?
No, I think you're right. I think some of it is around semantics. You know, what can we call these things? What issues, let's say environmental issues, climate change issues, are we dealing with that to a certain extent have been politically weaponized, whether that's in the US or whether that's in this country. But I think I was going to say surprising, that's the wrong word. There's a significant number of companies that are quietly away just doing this. But of course, you know, companies operate in order to turn a profit and make money. So that's important. But it seems to me that if we don't focus on the ESG requirements, we don't focus on, you know, as we all remember from college days, the three-legged stool of sustainability, and we just focus on the economic element, we will end up in a mess because we've got to do all things at the same time. And that's the same for a big business, a big food company or whatever with the farmer supply chain as it is an individual farm.
Yeah.
And that's why it's hard right now, you know, because I always remember, you know, reflecting on where we've been at university or college or our earlier days in the industry, it felt at that time like it was always, well, this will happen in the future, you know, or by 2020, and, you know, if you think about some of the climate change stuff, it's by 2030. Jesus, you know, 2026 in January. You know, like we're doing it now, and that's why I'm saying the next 20 years are the time where we're doing it, because the projections for potential bad stuff happens on our watch. So therefore, that's why we've got to solve it, and that's why we've all got to work together. I know I'm moving around because I'm excited. I'm jumping around in my seat.
Well, on that, Mark, if it's okay, I just had a WhatsApp. I don't know who this is, but they've just said, stop picking on Adam. We want to hear about the special projects that he and his colleagues are working on. I bet that's coming from internally. Go on, tell us about show off. Tell us about your special projects. We want to hear.
Okay, so our projects that we're working on, we call them Enigma projects. So they're collaborative projects, and it's essentially coming together with industry. So we've got 450 scientists working at Fera
Wow.
on agri-food topics. It's amazing. Yeah, I learn something every day, and my brain explodes every day because I'm not a scientist. So we got all these scientists working on agri-food topics from
Wow.
the end of the chain that we're talking about here, what's happening there, right through into natural capital, through into chemical safety, food safety, packaging, circular economy, the whole thing, farm to fork. And the way that we build the projects, if you like, I'm in the gap that exists between the industry and research. There's a gap where it needs to be practical and applied. And that's the type of organization that we are, because there is no point, in our opinion, doing science just for science sake because it's interesting and we write that up into a paper. Scientists at Fera do write that up into a paper. That's important. But we're an applied science organization because we want our science to make a practical and meaningful difference on the ground. Otherwise, what's the point? And if you're going to do that, and because we're a commercial science organization, you want the industry to think it's a good idea to work with us to essentially pay for that, then the science that we work on has to be driven by them. So part of my role is to be bringing together different people in the industry. So, you mentioned Max being at the potato event. We've got a couple of projects connected to the potato sector, which I can talk about if you like. But what it's about is working with the industry to develop ideas and understand the challenges that are happening on the ground. And that might be a farmer, it might be a grain company, it might be a dairy company, it might, what's happening across the chain, what's the challenges for the processing sector or the retail sector, and how do they move up and down that chain and involve the primary production end as well. And then from that, what are the scientific questions that need answering in order to solve the challenge? And then I bring together with a wider group of people, bring together the industry with the scientists, and we work on it together. And the meetings that we have, this is not, a 5-year project where the scientists, talk at the industry for half a day on what they learned and what they've done over the past year. We meet quarterly, and there is as much, if not more, focus on the industry all talking to each other about the experience that they've had in the last quarter around the challenge that we're trying to deal with, as there is the scientists talking to them about the work that we've done to advance the challenge that we're trying to address. So it's fabulous.
Love it.
I love it. Yeah. So we're open to ideas, but we've done projects in cabbage stem flea beetle in oilseed rape using botanical products to get on the top of that from a production perspective. We've done that. We've got a project on wireworm in potatoes. We've got a project around virus in the sector as well. So a lot of stuff going on, but we're always open to ideas. So if anybody thinking this is the thing that keeps me awake at night on the farm, that's not politics, that's not price, and not the weather, we can try and do something about it because we have no control over those three things.
Yeah.
But we do the science.
Well, there's a phrase that Mark and I often use on these. That there's so much profitability held up within the supply chain. So whether that be if you can diminish cabbage flea beetle or something. So if you could put your magic dust on that and your 450 colleagues and find a solution to cure that ill. That anomaly within you can just see how that's going to benefit the sector, and if it's okay to say not just in the UK but internationally.
Yeah, we're a global business, and we work in partnership. We work in partnership with AHDB, for example, but we work in partnership with companies and other organisations around the world because, in much the same way that I think it's important for the industry to collaborate with each other, and we can support that collaboration. We're also an organisation that thinks it's important to collaborate with others because we can't do everything alone, and other people bring different perspectives or other skills that we bring together into one. So it's a big part of what we do.
Yeah, and if, just going slightly off piece, you both will know the myriad of competitions out there. Where are you a startup? Have you got an innovative idea? Come and Dragon's Den stars, stand in front of 5 judges and get awarded £5,000 and an hour the judge. Are you acceptable, Mark, to receiving people who say I think the problem is this. I've got a solution. but I need to collaborate with a business like yourself to make success. Are you open to those sort of collaborative
Yeah,
conversations?
we often have conversations like
I
that
love it.
actually, and sometimes it can be something that feels quite random. And because we're an organization that's been around in different guises for a number of years, for a long time, um, we're an independent science organization where we're able to give, verify and certify and accredit and give an independent science stamp, if you like, to the ideas that people have. Because of course, some of the answers to the challenges that we face might be in a piece of tech. Think about
Yeah.
agriculture, might be in a piece of tech,
Yeah.
or the way that we use data and things like that. So it's about if you like, the utilization of the science, or the answers to some of the questions that we face that an organization like Fera can provide, which then goes into something which is then delivered on the ground, which could be a new way of doing things, a piece of
Yeah.
kit, and so on. But
Yeah.
yeah, we do that all the time.
Yeah. My father, long retired, is a doctor of biochemistry, and all that intellect skip me, obviously. But he always gives great examples about being curious in science, because that's how penicillin came about. If you don't know the story behind penicillin, look it up, or how microwaves came about. Do you remember that story? There was a scientist with a Mars bar or a Snickers bar in his jacket, and he went past a piece of kit, and it started to melt, and they realized that's how the microwave came about, or how 3M stickers came about. So Adam, that's great. So you're open to that sort of collaboration, whether it be a student or whether it be a bigger company or a trade group like the AHDB. You're very collaborative on that basis.
Yeah, and trade groups or associations, the farming industry and the food industry are very good at doing that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of them. They're very good at doing it, and often organisations like that can be they're there as a representative body often, but they're also there to if you like, coordinate and cajole, aren't they? They have a really important role in helping businesses come together around a common challenge, and sometimes that's very helpful to us as an organisation, because they're an important partner to us to do that, because they know the industry best, they're representing their interests, and we work with them often.
Yeah. And guys, you both know I love my marketing. Do you think we're not good at marketing this aspect, Adam, within UK agriculture? Because you could say that general population, when they think of agriculture, they just see tractors and Whitehall protesting, rightly so. But they don't see how Adam, you and your 450 colleagues are looking to future-proof the sector. Do you think we need to be loud and proud and shout about this more?
I think we do. I think we do. I think it's about whether that's for the wider public having an understanding of how farming and the ancillary industry works, but also as well anybody who's a young person thinking, what do I want to do with my life?
Yeah, well done.
And what industry do I want to get into? It's extremely broad, isn't it? It's almost endless, actually. And I think we need to shout more about that, really. If you just call it farming, people think what you've said. They have a vision of what they think farming is, and of course that's extremely important. But the wider businesses and services that support primary food production and the environment are just huge, aren't they? Huge opportunities. And I
Yeah.
don't think we articulate that very well, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also, Mark, you think we talked about this again before. There's a particular agriculture university which I won't name, and they get a bit frustrated with their student cohort because they don't have international ambitions, even to do their degree placement year overseas. You guys are well travelled. I could get people jobs in for a year on a South African avocado farm. I could get them a job in for a year in a Peruvian lime business. Ditto over in Australia on pineapples. Can you imagine working on a pineapple farm in Australia for a year? That would be beyond amazing. No offense to a dairy farm in Wales. So we've also got to be broad in our aspirations. Mark, over to you.
Yeah, no, yeah, I'll send you my CV later about the pineapple.
I've already got it.
Just thinking about, so with Fera, you're a very collaborative business. You're trying to create practical applied science that can be really and actually used. How do you think mindset and skill set of our ag leaders, our farmers, our ag businesses needs to evolve to continue and meet these challenges that we need to solve as our generation?
I think it's about joining the dots up, isn't it? So I'm interested in, as I mentioned before, around the big challenges facing us. I'm interested in those big top level, big shared challenges, whether that's the need to produce food, whether that's the pressure that's coming increasingly, well, it's already here, but the pressure that's coming on environmental issues, water quality, for example. There's going to be a range of things that the farming industry has to face into. And some of that's going to be hard because at the same time that we're facing into, I've used environmental challenges as an example here. At the same time as we're facing into those environmental challenges, there's a range of economic challenges, and this week is a good week to be discussing that. I don't think we need to get into that detail, but there's all that as well. So I think leaders across the industry, and I'm trying to do this all the time, certainly not perfect, it's about having as broad a view as possible about where your element of the world fits into what we're trying to achieve, but almost back to my first answer, and never losing sight of that, because that way lies lots of opportunities for collaboration. But that's why it's hard, because you've got to have that overall view of what's happening, big picture stuff, as well as, you might be a farmer operating in a specific sector, or you might be a food company with a farmer supply chain in a specific sector. But the reality is, we're all operating in a much bigger picture, particularly when that's, building new businesses, or food going into a retailer, or the political environment, or the environmental challenges that we face. And I think I wouldn't want to sound critical, because I don't have this fully sorted either, but I think it's incumbent on anybody in a leadership position at whatever level that leadership position is to develop more skills in big picture thinking, whilst also being able to do the detail of their individual business. And that's why it's hard, but that's why it's important that we all have to work together, because of shared challenges to do that.
Yeah.
And
whether you're that edge piece or whether you're that main piece in the jigsaw, and how you go to make.
But also just to add, sorry, I'm talking a lot, but also to try, and it's hard to ensure that big picture stuff doesn't lead to paralysis, because sometimes a big picture thing can be, and is, absolutely overwhelming.
Yeah.
And that's why it's difficult. And then you can start to say, it's so big, it's a global thing, I have no influence over X, Y, or Z thing, therefore I'm not going to do anything about that. Well, unfortunately, that's not an answer either.
No, because we all play our 1% little role to make the
absolutely
big
right.
Mark, can I jump in this, and Adam, tell me if I'm crossing the line here. Question from the West Country. What are some of the projects, if Adam's able to say, that he and his colleagues are looking to fix within the next 5 years within Fera Science?
Okay, big question. Some of that will be dictated by the things that industry comes to talk to us about. But the potato industry projects that we've got, if we've got some growers on, we're doing a project on wireworm, which has been really prevalent this year.
Yep.
And we have got a project on PRV, a virus affecting potato production. The ocean one I already mentioned. Where our projects will come from in the next 5 years, if I think about the arable sector mainly, because that would be most of our focus rather than the livestock sector, if you like. But how I'm describing where most of our projects are coming from, and I think the challenges that are faced on farms are what I call the interplay between production agriculture and environmental features in the landscape. So whether that's SFI, we can have a discussion about everything that's gone on there, or whether that's the supply chain saying, farmers, we want you to do those environmental actions on your farm. As a science organization, we're increasingly seeing that there is tension between those two approaches. So what you're getting is unintended consequences of environmental actions, for example, cover cropping. I'm doing a bit of detail here for you, sorry.
That's fine, you go, Kim.
You've got unintended consequences from environmental actions, cover cropping, environmental features, everything, all the brilliant stuff that farmers are doing and want to do is potentially having a detrimental impact on pest disease and virus issues that they're trying to contain in the production agriculture. So most of our projects, I'm giving you a generalized answer, but most of our projects are coming from that.
Yeah.
You know, as a farmer, I want and need to do both things.
Yeah.
But particularly for an arable farmer on very good quality land, of course, their primary focus has to be how do we get the best, highest quality, safest, most efficient, productive, and profitable crop from this land.
Yep.
How do we do that? And that's what we're interested in. So what we're about is how do we have sustainable agriculture and a thriving natural environment? Because we have to do both. But that's where the projects are going to come from. It's a tension that farmers are struggling to deal with, because the answers in the future will not come from a can or a bag.
Yeah, well done. Yep. Yeah, and that's why it's so exciting. That's why we must watch you all with positivity to see the success that you're going to make. Go, Mark.
Yeah, no, it's really, this is really, really interesting stuff, and that whole, looking at the bigger picture piece and looking at how things work in unison to push things forward. So what do you think is the biggest opportunity that our UK leaders have coming down the track to actively drive change in our industry?
I think the biggest opportunity for us really is we've got, and I actually had this discussion. It was more in a North Yorkshire context, actually. Similar question, but I was in a meeting in York 10 days ago and was asked a similar question. But I think you can say the same for UK agriculture. We've got a fantastic industry in terms of the products that we produce. We produce most things that are demanded. By and large, we can all have a moan around how hard it is to get around the country, but we've got pretty good logistics. You know, we can move stuff around. We've got a domestic population on our doorstep, and you've got there's a separate discussion around countries that have to export most of their stuff. You know, and arguably there may be more focus on R&D, but we've got a domestic population who wants to buy our stuff. We've got food inflation challenges, and how much that costs, and we've got a very, very professional supply chain of processors and retailers. Now, there's a separate discussion to be had around power in the supply chain and how that works, and all of that. That is a discussion, and that's challenging. But it is the case that the industry in the UK, from farming all the way through, is very, very good at what it does. It really is.
The ingredients are already there.
Yeah, it's all there. And I suppose at risk of slightly sounding like I'm still doing my old job, but I'm moving to the job that I'm doing now. You know, the building blocks are there for it to thrive. I believe that the people are there, some very, very good people. When we talk about succession, I do not believe there are a lack of young people coming into the industry. I just don't believe it. And you know, the event that Max was talking about that we were at last week plays this out. But I do believe there's often a lack of opportunity for those people, and it's difficult. For example, if they want to get to be a farmer, it's difficult from a standing start to become a farmer, and that's why I think it's important to see a bigger picture of how you can get involved in the industry. But I believe all of the building blocks are there, so it's about government helping to create the conditions for them to thrive, but also, you know, and I'm probably like a stuck record, I would say this includes in my job title, but it is about the industry working together collectively to address the challenges that they face, because, to sound a bit cheesy, the answers are in the room.
Yep.
We know how to do this. We know how to do this.
Yeah.
And the answers are probably not going to come from government or anywhere else. They're going to come from everybody working together in the market. And that's the challenge in front of us, but it energizes me, because if we get it right, everything's to play for.
And just to emphasize that in my travels, what I picked up, and this is not me saying this is other people from Australia, South Africa, America. There's a view that on a retail perspective in the UK, we are 5 to 10 years in advance of anywhere else in the world on a retail perspective. And likewise, the supply chain has to feed that retailer. So anyone involved within retail, the supply chain, farming's got that benefit of that. So we are 5 to 10 years in advance of the rest of the world in our whole supply chain because of what we're learning. And Adam being not been glued because of businesses like yours. So we can kick the can down the road, but we must always realize that we've got such a fantastic foundation that there's so much more that we can do. And again, without crossing that line about government, don't rely on government. Have relationships with the likes of yourself and AHDB. Learn, prosper, learn, be curious.
But I suppose as well, particularly, I don't know who's listening to this, but if you like, I agree with everything that you just said, but it's also about that, two things can be true at the same time. It is the case that we have this fantastic supply chain, but it's also the case that there is work needed there because it doesn't work for everybody. So particularly from a farming perspective, there are often frustrations in that supply chain, but equally there will be frustrations at every level up and down it because everybody's focused on their bit of the world and having to interact with others up and down it. So it is fantastic, but it also, for everybody in the chain probably needs to get better.
Gents, we're slightly running out of time. Mark, do you want to just present that question, if you can see it from Tom on the base of the screen, because that's an interesting one. When we haven't delved into this into the sinkhole that is AI. Go.
Yeah, thank you, Tom. And yeah, let's squeeze this in just before we all wrap up. Tom's asking: is there any research at Fera in relation to using collected data throughout the season with machine learning AI models to predict disease pressures, pest pressures, etc.?
Yeah, short answer, yes. You're talking to somebody who doesn't know a huge amount about this topic, so I can't give you some flannel, but short answer is yes. And a big focus on that is essentially using the existing data that we've got in order to inform decision making, and AI is a big part of that, but I'm certainly not the expert. But short answer, yes.
Well done. Let's watch you from afar, Mark. We could go on. This is Mark. Wrap up for us. I've really enjoyed this.
No,
I really learned a lot.
We're going to have Adam back for another episode to delve into this more. It's been really interesting, Adam, and I think just some of the notes that I've written down in terms of how we can be how we can better lead through these turbulent times. It's being that solution focused. It's having that goal, which sometimes you might not like what the goal is, but we need to drive towards that thing. Having that narrative and being able to tell the story, as I've said several times through the broadcast, that little quote about learn how to get things done and identify your strengths and identify people that you can surround yourself to challenge that. And just remembering that the challenge that you might be facing or the business might be facing probably is very similar to other business that are facing, so you're not on your own. And just, I think what in those last bits that we were talking about, just to summarize, we've got a fantastic thing for it. We've got a lot of the ingredients there. We just need to find that new recipe to meet the modern new challenges, which are obviously going to have nuances right the way through, and so that we can hopefully work better together to push things forward. But no, thank you so much, Adam, for your time. Yeah. Really good.
Can I please give you a book recommendation? This is why I'm looking on my other screen.
We didn't even get into that part of your life.
Oh no, forget that bit. Doris Kearns Goodwin, American historian. Lessons from the Presidents. I can't remember. I'm looking for the book. Can't remember what it's called. Look it up. Doris Kearns Goodwin. Basically, lessons from US presidents in leadership in turbulent times. I think it's called. Obviously, I haven't.
We will look it up and we'll try and put it in the link.
Very readable. If you're a nerd like me, it's readable.
Fantastic. And team, just to wrap up, I've got Wendy in the West Country. Oh, am I going to really say this? She's really enjoyed the conversations. She's learned a lot. Max, just back to your first question about what's the largest farm animal you've ever seen. If I can state, my husband's brother is the largest farm animal I've ever seen. So I know this, and she's saying that in jest, but but again, that's a lovely thing about farming. It's the community. Humor gets us through.
It's the hands of farmers, like very, very big hands. Amazing. Yeah, that's the perspective thing, isn't it, as well?
It is. Right, we're done. Adam, you're fantastic. Mark,
Have a
you're
good
fantastic.
weekend.
Thank
See ya.
you.
Thank you all.
Bye.